If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma and you're thinking about talking to a lawyer, the thing you need to do first is not gathering medical records, though that's helpful. No, the single most important thing you can do before talking to a mesothelioma lawyer is to gather your job history, where you worked, and what you did. This information will help your attorney assemble the exposure timeline around which your case will be built. You want to do this as soon as possible, while the details are still fresh in your mind. This simple step can make the difference between a strong case that recovers maximum compensation and a case where your attorney has to struggle to prove where your asbestos exposure occurred. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what information to collect and why it matters so much. Hi, I'm Terry Oppenheimer. I've been writing about mesothelioma and asbestos for the website mesothelioma.net for over a decade, and today I want to help you prepare for the most productive possible conversation with a mesothelioma attorney. Let's start by me explaining why your work history is so critical to a mesothelioma case. Mesothelioma is caused by exposure to asbestos, and in most cases, that exposure happened decades ago, even 20, 30, even 50 years before you were diagnosed. To build a successful legal case, your lawyer needs to prove three things: that you were exposed to asbestos, where and when that exposure occurred, and which companies or products were responsible for that exposure. This is where your job history is absolutely crucial. The companies that manufactured asbestos-containing products have teams of lawyers whose job is to argue that their products weren't the ones that caused your illness. They will look for any reason to deny responsibility. The more detailed and specific you can be about what you did and what materials you worked with, the harder it is for those companies to deny their liability. Here's what I recommend you do before your first conversation with a lawyer. Sit down with a notebook or open a document on your computer and write out your complete work history. Start with your very first job and then go forward chronologically. For each job, write down the company name and location. Be as specific as possible, including the city, state, and if you remember it, the street address or facility name where you worked. Write down the dates you worked there, even if they're approximate, like 1965 to 1968. It's much more helpful than sometime in the 60s. Describe what you actually did at each job. Don't just write construction worker. Be specific. Did you install installation? Did you work around boilers? Did you cut cement board? Did you handle gaskets or packing materials? These details matter enormously. Write down the products and materials you remember working with. Did you use specific brands of insulation? Do you remember the names on bags of joint compound or floor tiles? Any detail you can remember could be the key to identifying which companies are liable. Also, if you served in the military, this is especially important. Write down your branch of service, your years of service, your military occupational specialty or rating, and every duty station, ship, or base where you were assigned. If you served on a Navy ship, write down the ship's name and hull number. If you worked in shipyards or on aircraft, write down those details. Military service is one of the most common sources of asbestos exposure, and there are extensive records available, but your lawyer needs to know where to look. It's completely understandable for you to think, that was 40 or 50 years ago. I can't remember those dates. But you remember more than you think you do, especially if you take the time to sit down and really concentrate. Start with what you do remember clearly, and then let your memory work. One detail can trigger so many other things. Maybe not the exact address, but if you remember it was near a certain landmark or that you carpooled with a specific coworker, that helps. And speaking of coworkers, Talk to the people who knew you during those years. Your spouse may remember details about where you worked or when you changed jobs. Former coworkers might remember specific projects or products you worked on together. Your children might even remember you talking about your work. These conversations can jog memories and fill in gaps in your timeline. Now, I want to take a break here and just take a moment to remind everyone. If you find this information helpful, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us get our videos seen by as many people as possible. And if there's a topic you'd like to see covered or a question you'd like answered in a future video, let me know in the comments section below. Also, make sure to watch until the end of this video, where I'll tell you exactly how to access help and resources if you or someone you love has been diagnosed with mesothelioma. Now, let me tell you about some other important information to gather before you talk to a lawyer. Beyond your job history, other pieces of information will definitely be helpful. You don't need to have all your medical records in hand, but you should know the basics. When were you diagnosed? What type of mesothelioma do you have? Pleural, peritoneal, another type? What stage is your cancer? Who is your oncologist or primary mesothelioma doctor? Where are you receiving treatment? Having this information readily available will help your lawyer understand your situation much faster. Also, if you have any documentation from your working years, begin gathering it now. It could be old pay stubs, W-2 forms, union cards, military discharge papers, service records, old resumes or job applications, or even photographs you took when you were on the job site. You'll be surprised what you may have stored away in a box in the attic or basement. These documents can corroborate your work history and sometimes provide details you'd forgotten. Third, think about any secondhand exposure that might have occurred. Did your family members work with asbestos? Did you wash work clothes that might have had asbestos dust on them? Did you live near an asbestos mine, factory, or processing plant? While most mesothelioma cases involve direct occupational exposure, secondhand exposure cases are valid too, and your lawyer needs to know about all potential sources. All this preparation is incredibly valuable. When you call a mesothelioma law firm for an initial consultation, they're going to ask you many of these questions. If you have the information organized and ready before you call, you won't need to schedule a second call to provide the information that you couldn't remember during the first conversation or that most people can't remember. Second, it helps the lawyer assess your case more accurately. With detailed information about your exposure history, they can give you a realistic assessment of your case's strength and potential value. They can tell you much more specifically which companies might be liable and what types of compensation might be available to you instead of speaking in generalities. Third, it shows the lawyer that you're serious. Mesothelioma lawyers handle many cases, and they appreciate clients who come prepared and organized. It shows them that you're ready to work with them as a partner in pursuing your case, not just someone who expects the lawyer to do everything for them. Fourth, and this might be the most important reason, your memory is better now than it will be later. Mesothelioma is a progressive disease, and treatment can be exhausting. The details you can remember clearly today may be harder to recall in a few months. By writing everything down now, you'll create a record that you and your lawyer can refer back to throughout the legal process. You won't have to worry about trying to remember details when you're feeling ill or distracted by your treatment. Your preparation doesn't need to involve a legal strategy. That's what the lawyer is for. You don't even need to identify which companies should be sued. Your lawyer has access to databases and resources to help with that. You don't need to know legal terminology or the difference between a trust fund claim and a lawsuit. Your lawyer will explain all of that. Your most valuable contribution to your success is the information you provide about your work history and asbestos exposure. Your lawyer will turn that information into a legal case. Now, I know you're overwhelmed by your diagnosis. I have to address the need for speed. I know there's a good chance you're feeling overwhelmed by your medical appointments, the treatment decisions, and the emotional stress. But every state has something called a statute of limitations that limits how long you have to file a lawsuit after you're diagnosed. In most states, it's between 1 and 3 years, but it varies. The sooner you talk to a lawyer, the more time you have to build a strong case. And the sooner you gather this information, the fresher the details will be in your mind. Don't feel like everything has to be perfect before you contact a lawyer. If you can't remember every detail, that's okay. If you have gaps in your work history, that's okay too. What matters is that you document what you do remember. Your lawyer's investigation, research, and legal discovery can fill in gaps, but they need your firsthand knowledge as a starting point. Finally, I want to emphasize that this preparation is not about making the lawyer's job easier, though it does do that. It's really about giving yourself the best possible chance of recovering the compensation you deserve. Mesothelioma cases can be worth over $1 million, especially when they involve clear evidence of where and when asbestos exposure occurred. The more detailed and specific your information is, the stronger your case will be and the more leverage your lawyer will have in negotiating with defendants or their insurance companies. So, here's what I want you to take away from this video. Before you talk to a mesothelioma lawyer, take the time to write down your complete job history and exposure timeline. Include every job from your first employment through your retirement, with as much detail as you can remember about what you did and what materials you worked with. Gather any supporting documentation you might have. Talk to family members and former coworkers who might remember details you've forgotten. And don't wait. Start this process as soon as possible while the information is still accessible in your memory. This is a simple preparation, but it will help you have a much more productive conversation with a mesothelioma attorney. It'll help them assess your case accurately, identify liable parties more quickly, and ultimately fight for the maximum compensation you and your family deserve. Remember, you didn't cause your mesothelioma. Companies that knew asbestos was dangerous continued to use it and failed to warn workers about the risks. You have every right to pursue compensation for your medical bills, lost wages, pain, and suffering. Taking the time to prepare your job history before talking to a lawyer is one of the best ways to ensure you get the justice you deserve. Visit mesothelioma.net and fill out our form for a free information packet with comprehensive medical and legal information. You can also call 1-800-692-8608 or use our live chat feature on our website to speak directly to one of our helpful patient advocates. As for me, remember to post any questions you have below, and I'll see you next time.